It was nightfall when brilliant crimson clouds suddenly gathered over the city. The whole sky seemed ablaze. Slowly, glowing red sparks began to drift downward. Wherever one alighted on a leaf, the leaf flared up. Thatched roofs of dry grass caught fire, and people rushed to douse the flames. But this was only the beginning. Within moments, embers rained from the heavens. Scalding water poured down, burning whatever it touched. Then, without warning, liquid fire began to fall. Panic erupted. Animals bolted. Here, a horse wrapped in flames. There, a dog writhing in agony. Elsewhere, an ox, a cow, a camel fleeing blindly. Children's screams and women's cries filled the night as fire showered upon the entire city. Men tried to shield their children, their wives, their mothers, yet the flames kept falling. First, the skin of those engulfed burned away. Then even their bones turned to ash. God watched from above, a terrifying smile on his face, finding satisfaction in the people's screams. By dawn, town and city alike lay in smoldering heaps of ash. Nothing lived. Everything was dust. You just pictured Sodom and Gomorrah, the moral cautionary tale most Sunday school kids hear before they've even memorized the alphabet. But pause. If a modern army launched napalm on a city of infants and grandmothers, what would we call it? Justice or genocide? And if you recoil at the latter, why does the same act feel holy when the fire is labeled divine? Here's the twist textbooks rush past. According to Genesis, Abraham bargains God down to sparing the cities for just 10 righteous souls. Yet none are found, the fire falls, and the people perish. Trouble is, people means toddlers still learning to walk. It means pregnant mothers, teenage shepherds, the widow who lost her husband last winter. Are we really to believe every baby in town was plotting unnatural acts? Picture your niece clutching a wooden doll while the sky turns molten. Would you still nod yes? And the animals, why roast a sheep for its owner's fantasies? Do goats lust? Did the family dog write scandalous love letters? If not, why the indiscriminate burn? One number will rewire how you think about this. Exclusive same-sex orientation appears in only 1 to 2% of any human population, ancient or modern. Even adding bisexual attraction rarely lifts the figure above 10%. So statistically, 9 out of 10 citizens roasted that night were straight. Does that line up with the usual sermon? Or does it hint that something else, tribal propaganda perhaps, has charred the historical record? We've been asking the wrong question. The real puzzle is not why God hates gays. It's why tales like this insist homosexuality went viral in one desert pocket 4,000 years ago. Either the Creator hacked human biology to mass-produce a sin he hated, or the charge is trumped up. Which seems likelier? Pause. Imagine you're there, your lot. A mob wants your angelic guests. Instead of calling the guards, you shove your own daughters toward the crowd. Do what you want, only spare the strangers. Would any modern father, evangelical, atheist, or Jedi, call that moral? Yet Scripture frames Lot as righteous, while the mob is wicked. Is hospitality really a greater virtue than the safety of your children? If so, how far should that logic go today? Should a pastor volunteer his teenage daughter to keep Sunday visitors happy? The instinct screams no, revealing a moral gap between ancient narrative and modern conscience. But hold that thought, because the next discovery ruins it. Lot's daughters later intoxicated their dad and conceived children by him. The Bible names their sons Moab and Ben-Ami, founders of 2 enduring nations. How does the same God who obliterated cities for one unnatural act bless an incestuous dynasty? Where was the fire this time? Anyone else feel the goalposts shifting? A quick myth buster. Archaeologists have scoured the Dead Sea Basin for evidence of sudden cosmic annihilation. So far, no burn layers matching the biblical clock, no citywide ash beds, no mass graves charred beyond recognition. There are ruins, yes, but they align with normal cycles of war, trade collapse, and earthquake, not heavenly napalm. Could the story be a genre we know too well? Ancient geopolitical smear campaign? What better way to delegitimize rival towns than to brand them sexual deviants obliterated by God? Here's the part textbooks rush past. Fast forward to medieval Europe. Clerics cite Sodom to outlaw sodomy in canon law. Accusations become weapons. Want a rival monk silenced? Whisper that he's a sodomite. In the age of the Black Death, preachers blame the plague on rampant vice, and the image of sulfur-raining skies keeps congregations terrified, and tithing. Jump to 20th century America. Televangelists claim AIDS is God's judgment, a direct heir of the Sodom narrative. Each time, fear galvanizes power. Question: does the pattern reveal divine wrath or human opportunism? But a quiet detail flips the story. The very same Bible includes other visions of moral fire. In Ezekiel 16, God indicts Sodom not for same-sex desire, but for arrogance, gluttony, and neglecting the poor. Suddenly the sin is economic, not erotic. So which verse is the official indictment? And who decides? You, your pastor, a first-century bishop? One question changes everything. If Scripture can offer two incompatible reasons for a cosmic wipeout, why treat either as inerrant? Could these texts be snapshots of evolving human ethics, not recordings of an unchanging deity? Consider the teacher beating one innocent child analogy. Across history, religious authorities spotlight a minority, heretics, witches, LGBT folks, not necessarily because they threaten society, but because dramatic punishment keeps the majority obedient. After all, if God fries cities over private love, what might he do if you skip church? Fear becomes the iron rod that stirs the collection plate. Does any belief system become dangerous when its founding myths are treated as literal rather than literary? Literal fire from heaven licenses literal violence on earth. Read allegory instead, and the fuel line is cut. But there's a problem no one mentions. Western Christianity today sits at a crossroads. Polls show younger believers increasingly affirm LGBT friends, yet the Sodom text still lurks in pew Bible racks. How will congregations reconcile modern empathy with ancient flames? Ignore the story, reinterpret it, or cling to it and watch pews empty as Generation Z walks out? What choice would keep both moral integrity and spiritual heritage intact? Pause. Imagine this. A Sunday school teacher opens with Ezekiel's neglecting the poor angle, then compares it with Genesis, then invites children to vote on the true sin of Sodom. Instantly, Scripture becomes conversation rather than decree. Could that be the future of faith? Curiosity over fear? If so, who will model it? Yet a darker statistic looms. LGBTQ teens raised in non-affirming churches attempt suicide at double the rate of their peers. Picture a 14-year-old clutching a purity ring, told she's an abomination. Is that collateral damage acceptable for doctrinal purity? Jesus said, "The shepherd leaves 99 sheep to rescue one." Why does the modern flock sometimes do the reverse? Here's a living parable. In 2021, the tiny congregation of St. Luke's Lutheran in Chicago lost half its members after hiring a transgender pastor. The remaining half doubled down on outreach, feeding hundreds of homeless neighbors weekly. Attendance stabilized, donations spiked, Which half kept closer to the least of these ethic? Does that flip your expectations of who God might actually applaud? But let's widen the lens. The stakes are bigger than doctrine. In democracies, theological reasoning often migrates into legislation, from adoption bans to healthcare access. When fire from heaven myths shape civil law, everyone inherits the smoke. Question: should a pluralistic nation encode the ancient anxieties of one faith into policy that governs all? History answers with the Inquisition, Salem Section 28, Uganda's Kill the Gays Bill. How many more cautionary reminders do we need? A quick reality check. If a deity authored human DNA, then gay people are part of the blueprint, not a printing error. And if Jesus' core command was love your neighbor as yourself, how does policing consensual intimacy fulfill that? Could the Sodom story be less a universal decree and more a Bronze Age local fable promoted to cosmic policy? Here's where most videos roll credits, but stay with me because the payoff is coming. Let's run a final thought experiment. Imagine tomorrow, archaeologists unearth tablets proving Sodom was destroyed by an earthquake. No flames, no judgment, just geology. Would faith collapse? Or might it finally sever compassion from mythic terror? You, Western Christian viewer, inherit a faith whose founder healed outsiders, dined with sinners, and warned religious elites they shut the kingdom of heaven in men's faces. Which side of that table do you want to sit on? Return to that opening inferno. See the sparks? Hear the screams? Good. Now watch the scene rewind. Flames suck back into the sky, roofs unburn, mothers wipe tears. The city stands unharmed. What changed? Only the story you choose to tell. Stories kill and stories heal. Which will Christianity broadcast to tomorrow's children? Subscribe, tag a friend who still quotes Sodom, and drop a comment. Which biblical tale do you wish you could sit in the director's chair and reshoot? Let the debate, respectful, relentless, and revelatory, begin.